This is Danesha Adams, and you're listening to World Sports Show on WPPM 106.5, Philadelphia.
And welcome to World Sports Show. This is Charlie Flo coming to you live on WPPN LP, Philadelphia, November 14th. Beautiful Monday. The supermoon is out. We can't see it's hiding behind the clouds, but it's out there, John.
That's right. A little too cloudy out there.
We've got a special guest hanging out with us tonight. We'll be co-hosting the show. Our good friend Danesha Adams, who has played for more teams than I can count. She's the super pro, now coaching at Villanova. Welcome to the show, Danesha.
Thanks for having me.
Interesting to be back in Philadelphia.
It is. It's been great so far, and I'm going to love this town, and it's been good for me for those 2 years that I played here, so always great to be back in this lovely town.
We find that Philly is a contagious city. It's a city that you leave, but you can't stay away from it. You always find yourself drawn here. You and I ran into each other, at an Eagles game last year?
We did.
So what is it that draws you to Philadelphia?
Everything. I played here for 2 years. I really enjoyed it. I met some great people. I lived with an amazing family who, took care of me for those 2 years. So, I always try and give back and come back to the area and any chance that I get to visit. And, they happen to have some Philadelphia Eagle tickets. So that's why we went to the game.
Nice.
But it's always good, just to come back and to be in this nice, lovely city. And I love it.
Yeah, you've been to a lot of cities, and something about Philadelphia that really I love that it's a big city but a small town feel. You can always run into friends, and it's a very walkable city. I know when you play for the Philadelphia Independent, it's a little bit of hike outside of Philly, but it's a very small town feel but big city too.
It is, definitely. Obviously when we played here, we weren't quite in the city, but definitely we got down here as much as possible and we were able to walk around, especially in the nice spring season and the summer. It's nice and beautiful days out, and it's always nice to be down in a city with great people and friendly people, and it's definitely nice to be able to run into people and friends, people that know you from playing here, and just being able to always have a positive influence in a lovely city like Philadelphia.
Always good talking about our city, John, and a city that always is giving back. It's a city that it's got a deep soccer history, and it was neat that you got to play for Philadelphia's pro team here. And fingers crossed one day that Philadelphia will get a women's pro team. We have a men's team, but gosh, we really would love to have a women's pro team here in Philadelphia. A lot of things in the news we're going to talk about tonight. We got CONCACAF qualifiers. The Hex was underway this past weekend. We'll recap that, talk about that. We're going to talk about U.S. women in their 2 games against Romania. NCAA soccer tournaments on the men's side. They debuted their, what you could call bracket tonight, their little selection show. So all those tournaments will now be underway this week. So very exciting time in soccer. Any early picks, John? Anything going to throw out of the gate?
You got me on this last time. I had to drop the pen, whatever it landed on. But we'll get into that. I got a little something on my sleeve for you.
Yeah, a lot of news. We'll break down also some other women's soccer news that might not be fresh to everyone out there, but fresh to me because I only check the internet maybe twice a week. It might be a lie, but I just found out some. To me, it's breaking news.
Come on.
On radio, it's breaking news. We're only on once a week, so that's the thing. Any news that hits after 10 p.m. tonight is breaking news to us on the show next week, right?
That's right.
Is that how it works?
Mm-hmm.
So
we call it a recap news, recycled news.
Recycle news, just put it on the loop. So what's been going on with you, John? Did you have a good weekend?
Very good weekend. Work. Doing show prep. But, working jobs, coaching soccer.
That's right. You did some coaching this weekend. How did that go?
Coaching. We got great weather here in Philadelphia. It's been about
true.
60, 70 degrees. You can't ask too much for this time of the year, so it's been awesome. Working with the little kids, getting them back into it. So getting them ready for the winter break, the late season, and trying to convince everybody to play futsal through the winter. Get the ball in the court, get the foot skills going on. So, yeah, not too bad.
Didn't make it to playing futsal last night. Thought about it. How about you, Danesha? You ever play any futsal in your days?
Not really. Growing up in California, we played outside all year round.
There you go.
Lucky.
We didn't do too much futsal. I did a little bit in my older days, with Philadelphia. Independence, and just a few other places. We did some futsal when I played in Turkey. That was very, very, very big. It's what we did always. We were inside of a gym playing futsal. It's a little bit dangerous for me. It's a little bit, I like my space. So being in these
Dangerous for you or dangerous for people around
these
you?
tight corridors, and people slide tackling, get a little reckless in the futsal game. It's a little bit dangerous,
Slide tackling and futsal. What type of surfaces? I mean, I've played a lot of my futsal on basketball courts.
That's what they were playing in Turkey.
Are you kidding me?
But
And they slide
it didn't
tackle on
matter
that?
if we got court burn, knee burn. It didn't matter as long as the ball didn't go in the back of the net.
Same guys that celebrate the goal by running and sliding on their knees on the basketball court. All you hear is cheek. Nah, dude. I mean, I'll get low in futsal, but I don't think my shins will actually touch the ground.
Yeah,
That's-
no,
it's
definitely
also
not the knees.
age too. You go down to futsal, you got to get up. So, but yeah, that's the thing about, like you said, growing up in California versus growing. Well, I grew up in Southern Virginia, so yeah, I didn't even know what futsal was until I came to Philadelphia. But we were very limited in the Philadelphia area. There's not a lot of indoor spaces. You only got a few indoor, like YSC, Starfinder, but as in for Center City itself, there's not many indoor facilities, so you just have to do makeshift. I mean, John and I play pickup at a church, play 3-on-3 futsal, which is a tiny little gym, but with 3-on-3 futsal, the amount of touches you get per game.
It's for old people.
Yeah.
Me and you.
Yeah, you're way
it's
too young,
good.
Danesha. You'd be a ringer.
It's great. So when you go back to the outdoor in the spring, it feels like the ball's on a yo-yo, on a string. But it's, like I said, for old guys like us, running for an hour, that's it. Ice packs, Advil.
It's the thing that we always talk about, that there's always those people that invented those apps that we've seen in the last few years. I want to say apps before the word app was invented, but that they had a chip inside their boot that you could track how far you run per game, how many kilometers you run per game. But I joked about inventing something with a boot that how many touches per 10-minute ratio, like a 10-minute interval, and you just time that times 9. You got your pro touches in an outdoor game versus a 3-on-3, 5-on-5 futsal. I mean, did you ever use any of those types of apps, Danesha, where you tracked how many kilometers, miles you ran a game?
I mean, not really. A little bit in the professional year, we try and use the GPS, the heart rates and all that, and it kind of tells you, how much you've ran per game and whatnot. But I think those Adidas cleats that have the Mio in them, it tells you, how far you've ran, how all those different types of technologies that are going on now. But at the end of the day, you just got to play soccer.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes you use stats. I mean, really, what kind of use it is, like your heat map might just show a circle, but then you scored 3 goals, and it's like, well, coach, you got on me about maybe running a kilometer, but I scored 3 goals. If you're a forward and you're positioning yourself right, you don't need to run. You're just waiting for that ball. So definitely a neat thing when it comes to stats versus technology to advance the game. We're going to break down our first game tonight. Friday night, a lot of build-up, a lot of crazy political things going on in our country. So USA, Mexico, Friday night in Columbus. The chance always Dosa 0. It just felt like, is this going to be Dosa 0? Because eventually you keep betting on 2-0, the bet's going to come up short one of these times.
Oh, no, for the last couple times it's came up, just like you're playing roulette. You hit the number, you got to play it again, right? Leave the chips on there. But, I don't know too many people who, talking about predicting the score were thinking 2-0 result. A little more closer, could have went either way. Half the people said, no problem, U.S., and, the realists were like, hey, Mexico's got the little edge, to be honest. But, 2-0, that's to land on 2-0 again. Ooh, I know I'm not a bettor, but I wonder what the odds would be for to hit again in Columbus, the same stadium again.
Yeah.
It's got,
So a game that came out with, a lot of political things, and I think that really something that really hit home and really touched my heart is when you had all 22, not 11, but 22 players all post their picture together, interlocked arms. I think that was really cool, good touch there. And I heard so many positive stories of how the U.S. fans greeted the Mexican supporters, and I've been there before. I was at one of the Dosa Zeros back in 2005, and just the soccer, the Sam's Army, and the supporters are just so positive. There's no negativity going on. So I think when it comes to the game, they just have to play. You put all political stuff aside and you just play the game.
Okay. No doubt. Yeah, that was a very nice touch, getting the picture pre-game. Everybody in there made a lot of headlines and hit the Facebook and Twitterverse, social media verse, or whatever they say. But, yeah, a lot of people were talking about that.
Yeah, and even in the rivalry, we saw some new faces into the rivalry and some old faces. Like Rafa, he's been there, since like 1983, it feels like?
Pretty much. At a high level since 83.
Yeah, it's the thing is he's still balling.
Right.
So it was a game that Mexico had a lot of pressure early on, and unfortunately, Mexico takes a lead, and it could have gotten a lot worse. I mean, it was a lot of dingers on the post, too, that Tim Howard was very lucky, and then something that really changed a lot of escape the game might change the result, but Tim Howard getting hurt, I mean, that's a big blow to the U.S.
I mean, big blow to the U.S. and also has implications in MLS as far as, playoffs and conference playoff situations. So, yeah, one little, I don't want to say little injury, but, one injury there as quick substitution. It was early on in the game, I believe.
Yeah, tweaked his ankle on a goal kick.
Wow.
Of a shank. He shanked the ball, and I was wondering why he shanked, and you see he twists his ankle. He tried to go on, made a couple saves, and it just – Guzman comes in and subs into him. It's just a heck of a number 2, but, I mean, what we saw Howard do in the World Cup in Brazil single-handedly, do somersaults against Belgium.
Yeah, right.
So, and even just as a goalkeeper or leader in the backfield, I mean, what does that do to you, Danesha? You ever been in a game like that where your goalkeeper gets hurt and you got to bring the back up?
I have. I mean, Brad Guzan is definitely no Tim Howard.
Yeah.
But it's, I think it's a little bit, it depends on the team. It depends on, kind of the core of your group. I mean, obviously Brad Guzan has had quite a few minutes with the team, and I think he's pretty comfortable. So I think they're okay, and I think they should be able to adapt at this level. But it's always difficult to have to make a goalkeeper switch so early in the game, and it kind of changes the whole flow of the game, the philosophy. I mean, Tim Howard comes off his line. Brad Guzan, not so much. Yeah. So now your back line plays a little bit different. It depends, I mean, it's definitely a tough substitution to make.
Yeah, we've seen him have the experience the last few years. It's when Tim Howard kind of went in a little sabbatical, I guess, for a while, take his little leave of absence. It's been Guzan's team, but like you said, that the backline changes. We know that Tim Howard is very vocal and got a lot more height on him. And also as a goalkeeper, you're coming in to an atmosphere where you're already down 1-0. So even though you didn't give up that goal, psychologically you're playing a different role now. So he comes in, keeps it 1-0. They look into the second half. Some amazing play from Bobby Wood. It was probably one of the most, best individual brilliances of the entire game. Just feels like he went through the entire team. And the 49th minute, with an assist off Josie Outdoor, makes it 1-1. And after that, it really looked like USA was in a cruising control. They were going to take a 2-1 lead and walk away and be Dos a Uno. I mean, I was ready to tweet Dos a Uno, but that was only the 49th minute.
Ooh. A little premature. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've been there as players and coaches until not even full 90. I mean, you got to have that full 90 plus the stoppage time, and then a few minutes after stoppage time, because you always have the ref that says 5 minutes and makes it 7. So it's a nail biting thing. So, but the guy we were just talking about, Marquez, comes in 89th minute. Well, doesn't come in. He was already in, but it felt like he came in, took a little rest, and bang, 89th minute. Talk about a nail in the coffin right there for Mexico.
Yeah, good old Rafa. Always finds the ball in the right place. That's what the great players do, right?
Soccer IQ is 100 out of 100. I mean, there's a reason why you love to hate this guy. It's one of those guys you wish he was wearing your country. So, very tough spot. USA will travel down tomorrow. They're probably already there. They're not traveling today, but they'll be playing Costa Rica. Very, very concerned there. I mean, our biggest concern is it going to snow in Costa Rica tomorrow?
Yikes. Yeah, right.
It's not going to snow. It's in Costa Rica. So is the U.S. in big trouble if they draw or lose? What do you guys think?
If they lose, I don't know about big trouble. They still have a lot of time left. It seems like if worst comes to worst, still got 9 games to play. They have to get a result here, not here, but sooner or later. But it'll come down to goal differential, and it just seems like it comes down to that wild card game if needed at the end. So I just see, playing for a draw would be a good result away, but a loss would be tough. 0-2 coming in, then a little bit of break, a couple months, and then
don't play
back
till
to
March
play
again.
To March, yeah. So I think a result at least get on the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, they got to get some sort of result, whether that's the draw or that's a W. At this point in time, I just feel like we continue to talk about these things when it comes to our men's national team. We're never in a comfortable situation.
No.
We're always in a situation where, oh, is this a must win? Is that a must win? And at some point, can we get some of these must wins and get some results? So make it easy on your fans and make it easy on our country to say, you know what, at this point, we should be able to, take on these other countries and not have too much of issues.
Yeah, because the roads only get tougher when they hit Russia. If they hit Russia, I'm going to make a small assumption and say they should qualify for Russia. But that's the thing is, if you're having a tough time in CONCACAF, not to discount CONCACAF, but it is one of the, how can I say this in a nice way, easier federations to qualify. I mean, we get 3.5 teams. And, I mean, lately in the last couple, international tournaments, CONCACAF has done well. But, I mean, you really, really got to get that one seed and try to go into the last couple of games with games to spare. I think that's the biggest thing is you take care of business early, and then those last few games you get to experiment. I mean, USA was in that position for Brazil qualifying. I remember that last game. Nothing but it had implications for Mexico getting in. It's so weird that we had to win for Mexico to get in, and we did that.
So my thought is, if they drop the game and lose, does that put pressure on the technical staff to go back and say, hey, we got to have a meeting? Like, are they going to rethink anything? We don't want to put added pressure. So I think that a result will do a lot of good this one. You don't want to have any doubts on what they're doing. So,
another thing that comes to mind is the freshness of the players, is that we have such a different international domestic league compared to the rest of the world, where our players in MLS, they're at the final leg of their season, where the European players and some of the South American, Central American players that are playing in Europe, they're just into their seasons. They've only started in August, so you do have to keep that in consideration, that you have some MLS players that, do they go on loan or do they just shut it down? It's a very big personal question, that it's up to the players. But, as a player, do you take that, loan over to EPL or a German league, or do you just shut it down for the winter and just stay fresh? It's a tough question.
I think if we want this league to grow and be successful, I think we have to go on loan.
Yeah.
I think we have to make some changes. And I think at some point I'm hoping that the MLS will make some changes and make our season the same as the EPL, so we don't have these issues. So that when the international break happens, we're kind of all in the same exact point of our season. I think that is kind of been a big issue with the MLS throughout the last couple of years, is you have players who want to go play overseas and play in the EPL in these different leagues, but they can't really, just based on, it's been told before, oh, you got to play in America to be on the national team, or it's like, oh, now all of a sudden Klinsman's bringing in these foreign-born players, but who have U.S. parents as U.S. citizens. So it's just, it's a lot going on. But I think for us to continue to grow our team and grow our country, I think we have to start to go play at the next level, and that's, playing in the EPL and doing different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit home with that comment, and it's, if you look at international rosters like in England, or Germany, where most of their players play within their league, all their players are on the same page, fitness-wise, where they are in their seasons, where, like you mentioned, you have the European-based players that Klinsman's brought in, and then you have the MLS-based players, and they're in completely different, wavelengths of their seasons. So it's a very tough job. I think coaching the U.S. has got to be one of the tougher jobs when you have so many different foreign players. And you said you put the pressure on. Do you want to play local here and then MLS help grow that league, or do you want to go play in EPL? So it's a debate that we can almost spend an entire show talking about that.
And we just might.
We just might. We would have some disappointed people out there that wouldn't learn all about Danesha Adams' many travels. Her passport's been stamped more times than I can count. So it sounds almost like you go the express lane. We'll break down more of your career, of all your journeys a little later on. We'll spend the second half of the show focused on Danesha Adams. We'll get her a little time to prep, and hard questions we'll have for her. We got some really tough ones. The fans emailed in some questions too. Yeah, so just a reminder, you're listening to WPPM 106.5 FM. This is World Sports Show. Danesha Adams, John DeCriscio, and I'm Charlie Flo. Look up next page, the U.S. Women's National Team. I mean, it was interesting because you had the men's game on Friday night. U.S. women playing on Thursday and playing on Sunday, because it was kind of sandwiched in there. It was the two ends of the bread really good, and the middle of the meat was a little rotten. I mean, I don't know how much to say it. I mean, when you have Thursday night, and I don't want to call it an appetizer, but when it's a friendly, I get excited, but I don't get that excited when it's a friendly. I mean, we had, 36th ranked Romania. So it's like you expect them to win. You want them to win big, but you want to see development. I want to see the young players out there trying out different formations and seeing how they link up with some of the veterans. So I do like the mix that Jill Ellis has gotten. Like the camp that she had a few weeks ago, half veterans, half new players. In this camp, same thing. A lot of players getting their first caps, second camp, mixing in with a couple of other veterans that weren't in the first camp, but coming out and beating Romania 8-1. What sticks in your mind, John, when you hear 8-1 USA beats Romania?
The one.
Yeah.
And I'm just being honest. The one sticks out in my mind.
Yeah. We're used to seeing that zero, especially a team that comes in ranked 36 in the world, even though the FIFA rankings are complete. I don't know what they are.
I mean, it used to drive people nuts when I used to compare everything to the FIFA rankings. And I was doing that on spite just because I know that the accuracy and we talked about that in past shows that, the FIFA rankings are not always the best indicator of team strength. But, yeah, it's just, for 36 in the world, hey, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the young kids.
And it's true. That's the one thing that stuck out in my mind. The biggest is that missed cue on the play back. I mean, we looked at Ashlyn Harris a little bit high on her line, maybe a little too high. And, I mean, you've been in that situation playing for the U.S. Do you get that comfort feeling? I mean, you're playing on top, so you don't got to worry about playing goal. But when you play a lot of these lower-ranked teams, you get that comfort level where your defense kind of relaxes a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but the same player had a couple of chances a little bit earlier, you know, and I just think it's one of those things where, she was high off her line. She always kind of plays like that. That's her style of play. But I think that's kind of been the big question mark with our national team right now, playing against the top teams or playing against these mediocre teams, is our goalkeeper position. We've talked about, it's a little bit iffy. And I mean, I think that you definitely, when you play these lower ranked teams, it's very easy to become complacent. And at that point, they'd already scored a couple goals. It's, they had the flow of the game. It's just kind of, and it's like, whoops, here it goes. But again, we're playing a new formation. We're playing a 3-back.
Yeah.
And you have someone like Allie Long playing center back. I mean, she's a center midfielder, an attacking center midfielder, if you ask me. So now throwing her at the center back position is definitely, and it's clear in the positioning of if you watch the game and watch that specific situation, it's her inexperience in that position that puts her in that, puts the team in that predicament, and I just think I think it's great. You guys talked about the young players. I think that's absolutely good. I also thought I was a little shocked with the Stanford player, considering the next day they played their NCAA game.
Yeah.
That she got to play 60 or 70 minutes.
That's tough.
But good for her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to turn down the national team. I know I was in a couple of those situations back in my day at UCLA. But it's hard to turn them down. But at the same time, your loyalty is kind of to your college team at that point.
Yeah.
Especially when you're playing a Romania. I mean, if we're playing a Germany, a Japan, a England.
That's when you answer the phone call.
Yeah, that's when you want to get up for those games.
You see the phone ringing, and it's the national team coach. You look at the schedule like, I can sit this one out.
No, I mean, but it's definitely
but I know what you mean.
It's a conversation that you have, and I think at this point in time, I mean, obviously Stanford didn't have a great opponent in their game. They played Houston Baptist. I mean, it's not necessarily a great opponent, but at the same time, it's just tough. She played 70 minutes, and then the next day had a college game.
Yeah. I mean, it is that thing that I don't like, preseason type games, errors, but sometimes having an error is good for film watching, that sometimes you never cheer for the USA to get scored on, but it's something you can learn from as situational. Let's see how we handle this situation. Like I said, putting Allie Long into a position she's not comfortable with. And a lot of it is, as a coach, we all put our players in a position sometimes, I wouldn't say to fail, but that's what I love about preseason games. We did a lot at Philly U this year. We played players out of position to see how they would do. Mm-hmm. We've never played this guy on the wing. Let's try playing him on the wing and see what happens. I'm sure you've done that at Villanova, and that's a luxury of preseason. You get to experiment.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I mean, is that realistic? You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, we're trying it out, but I'm just not. Yeah. I'm not sure I can see Allie Long being my center back in the 3-back playing against Germany.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, are we making these?
When
changes?
will we ever use this in a meaningful game?
Because are we making these changes to continue to grow, to get better? Why are we making these such changes? Yeah. And for me, I mean, she just got married. She's fresh off her honeymoon. She's on cloud 9, and now here we go. Oh, center back.
You should be working for Vegas. Start feeding Vegas some lines. I got the inside tip here, but no, that is the neat part. I mean, and I remember talking to Ashlyn Harris after one of her first ever shutouts, and we joked about it. I'm like, yeah, you just got a shutout. It's like, well, I didn't face a single shot. I mean, it's one of those things where she might have gotten maybe 2 or 3 goal kicks, and that is one of the biggest challenges for some of the U.S. keepers and backlines is not facing a lot of action. Your midfield will get work, your forwards will get plenty of work, but sometimes it's just you want your goalkeepers to be tested and face shots, but how do you get them those reps in a game that doesn't really matter? When I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but I mean, that's when I guess the training itself, when you guys are doing inter-team scrimmages, building up to these camps, is when the players get their workouts.
Absolutely.
I just want to go back to the goal. Let's not discount the pass, the through ball that was put there. I think it was a perfectly weighted ball. I mean, I know it was a midfielders could have stepped up, but the pass was on the money that sprung the forward for the goal. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, it was a real setup.
A little pinpoint on it.
And I want to give a shout to my buddy out there, Lloyd. He was making his Phelps face during the game. I snapped a little photo of that, and that got a little social media attention. But no, I'm really happy for my friend Lloyd out there getting the call up. I mean, that's the phone call. As a player, you wait there that phone call from the national team. As a coach, when a national team calls, that's like the dream scenario, getting called in to the principal's office for a good reason. So, really good breakdown. So, they ended up cruising to easy win in that one, 8-1. USA played the same team last night, and they beat them by a score of 5-0. It looked like it was going to be 3-0, and they got 2 really late goals. But another good thing is seeing some of the young players, like one player is really sticking out of my mind that you can probably read my mind, John, a player I think is going to be a major bright star for the U.S.
Let's go.
Lynn Williams. Yeah, I think that she's a player that's really, really benefited from the NWSL and really, really coming out and blossoming. I mean, this is the time where Jill Ellis is getting a chance to play with a lot of different players, tryout players that I think in previous regimes, I shouldn't say regime, gosh, that's the wrong word, but previous coaches that you had certain players that were in, and all of us out there knew this player's in no matter what. We've seen it on the men's side that you feel like they've got a roster spot no matter what. But I like this with Jill Ellis, that this is a time when you've got a couple of years, 3 years for the next World Cup, that we know the qualification is going to be easy, walk to the park, but you have to be, you're the defending champions. You got to bring home the World Cup. So this is a time that I want to see a lot of new faces, but a lot of new faces that can actually contribute.
I think that's the key. Contribute and fit the system. So whatever they're going to play, let's
whatever the system is. Right. We don't know what it is. 3 backs, 4 backs, 5 backs. Even Romania running 5 midfielders there for a while.
5 midfielders, 1 striker.
Why not?
Right.
I mean, that's the thing is the U.S. that you never want to sit on it. You see these scores, but you want a team that actually tries to go toe-to-toe with the U.S. to at least challenge the team for the first half to give them an honest game. So the first 2 halves of both games were actually pretty good games. But when it comes down to the stretch, it's just that I think the fitness and the physicality just wear on them. I mean, what have you seen on the international level when you guys would play other countries? They would a lot of teams probably come out and try to play toe-to-toe with the U.S., and I'm sure that they bring that extra physicality, try to go toe-to-toe with you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the other countries are a little more physical than the U.S. in general. I think it's just – who doesn't get up to play the U.S. women's national team? I think everyone.
Everybody shows up to have their best game against you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's still like you said. I mean, the first half, you kind of hang around, you give it your best shot, and then it kind of just dwindles slowly. And I don't know if it's just – yes, it's a little bit of the physicality. It's also a little bit of just the technique and the tactical standpoint of it. I think that's kind of the huge thing. Watching the games, you kind of see the U.S. We had so much success down the left-hand side of the field. So now you question yourself tactically, well, what's going on their side of it? What are they thinking? So I think for us, we do a good job of tactically understanding other teams. But other teams don't do that as well.
Yeah, they don't recognize as much, and that's why the halftime is so big when you look at the U.S. second half versus first half. I mean, just regrouping with your team and breaking it down. And some of these teams, they're not as used to seeing adjustments, and we're such a country that we're able to adjust on the fly, change our formation, and players are able to recognize it. Sometimes you get good enough players that they'll be switching on their own. I've seen it a lot in the NWSL. Well, players will just switch on their own. They'll get their freedom from their coaches, and we've seen that, and sometimes players just aren't used to seeing that. So there you go. USA beats Romania 5-0 last night, 8-1 on Thursday, and mixed in there, U.S. men drop a 2-1 decision in Mexico. Another little interesting stat before we move on, that all 3 teams won away in CONCACAF. Costa Rica won at TNT. Mexico beat us here, and I mean it's very interesting that all the away teams won. So the pressure's on. So we're gonna look at some other news. I believe we have what should we dip into next, John? The mailbag? Do you want to dip into some NCAA? What do you think we should talk about next? I mean, it was a big bracket debut tonight.
I don't know. You're the center midfielder.
I'm the center midfielder. I've never been a center midfielder. We don't know what this game's going to end up like.
I don't think I've ever played center midfield myself.
Maybe in 3-on-3 futsal. Does that count? Center mid? But earlier today, the NCAA men's bracket came out, and some history made thanks to Danesha. She coaches the women's team at Villanova, but Villanova men, for the first time in their history, had made it.
They did. It was very exciting today. Good news. They had a selection show in one of our new buildings at Villanova, and they were very excited. They had a good year in the Big East, and it's obviously really good to see them in there, and hopefully they can make some noise.
Yeah, definitely with the bubble teams coming in at 10-7-3, you always wonder, and I think that's probably one of the most stressful days as a bubble team. When you were with UCLA, I didn't track I know you guys did very well in the tournaments. Were there any of the years that you guys were a bubble team just kind of waiting for that call?
No.
Always in?
Yeah, all 4 years. My freshman year, I wouldn't say we were a bubble team. We were pretty confident we would get in, but there was some. We did well in our conference, but we didn't do well in our non-conference games, so it was a little bit of question, but, I think we still pretty much, we ended up being, like a 9 seed or something my freshman year, so we still got in.
Yeah.
But we weren't sure exactly where we were going to be, or my last 3 previous years, it was pretty.
So, NCAA tournament, bracket came out today, and we talked about Villanova, the local team. They're going to play Akron in the first round. That'll start up November the 17th, so Akron, we've known that Akron's been a team to pump in professionals. That was like a not money maker, but a factory for MLS players for years there. So, not the same coaching staff they've had before, but it's going to be an interesting game. And, my father and mother's alma mater, Wake Forest, comes in with a 2 seed. That's another team that definitely have a circle on to look out for. Another local team, Delaware, makes it in at 12-7-1. So, those are a couple of our local teams, even Virginia Tech, semi-local. So, but very interesting. So we're going to do the little go around the table. You got to pick one team to win it all. John, do your old pen drop. Who do you think's going to win it all?
I did it before. The pen dropped last week, and it seems like the fans kind of
they didn't like.
They said I took it a little bit easy. I needed to make a prediction. I made, instead of just dropping a pen at random. Predictions. Who do I like here? Looking at the sheet, I did have a couple circles, but what I always do is when I look at these, I always second guess myself. Then I start digging deeper and looking at goal differentials.
Then you should just go back to your original pick, right?
Looking at matchups, looking at that. But I am going to go, which I think I might have last year, because we got to watch a lot of them actually. I always look at Maryland.
Okay.
It's an easy way out, taking the number 1 seed. People going to write in, hey, thanks to your expert opinion, but that's just.
Made the move to the Big Ten. We always wondered how it was going to be for them, but hey, had a great season, so it's not a bad pick at all. I can't discount you. I'm going to throw it over to Denisha, and you have a pick. I'm looking for UCLA men on here.
They're down there, but they had a little rough year this year. I'm looking at that. 9-7-2.
That's a wild card, man.
That's definitely a wild card, and they're not usually in that position. But I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to give Clemson a shot.
Okay.
I think they're doing well on the men's side. They're doing well on the women's side. They're doing well in the football program. I think the school's just on the rise. And I think I'm going to give them a shout. Maryland, number 1 seed. You haven't lost a game all year. Those teams never win.
I was thinking the same thing.
They never win.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to take a Clemson to shock the world.
Shock the world. I'm going to be biased. They won the ACC, and my father, is a Wake Forest grad, so I've been pumped Demon Deacon blood all my life, So, unfortunately, they're a liberal school, and I didn't really study liberal stuff in college. So that would have been my first choice if I had a degree in some type of liberal arts. But no, I think Wake Forest, not just because of that biasness, I think because of the way they won the ACC, and they've been consistent all season, and they experienced a couple losses that they've been there, done that, and if we had to pick a wild card team, I wouldn't even say it's wild card, but I'd like UNC, so can't go wrong with Tar Heels. We know the women's program's done a great job, but so there's my pick, Wake Forest Danesha going with Clemson, John going with Maryland. So we'll see at the end of this tournament how it all fans out. We're going to break down the women's D1 tournament. The tournament already began. Man, talk about some upsets, John. Is your team still alive? In the women's bracket, we had the first round go through last week. Second and third round will be the next couple days.
This pen is the magical pen, and it landed on Virginia last week. So that is why it will take this team to the championship.
That is your same pen?
Same pen.
So Virginia did pull off a 4-1 win over Monmouth. I mean, Monmouth had a great season, but
that one goal was a gift. Gift for showing up.
Yeah, so if anybody picked Notre Dame, sorry, Notre Dame fell. And here's a little trivia for you.
Tough one, yeah.
SIUE, that acronym. I'm sorry for all the fans out there. I did not know that acronym. Had to look it up. What was it again, John? Southern.
So you looked it up.
Was it Southern Illinois? No, I didn't look it up, man.
Southern Illinois University,
Edwardsville.
Man, taking out Notre Dame, the 2 seed 0-0 PKs. So anybody who had Notre Dame in your bracket, just flush it down the toilet.
Yeah.
So
crumbled up.
So. No, I did like UCLA. I'm saying that because, we do have a UCLA, grad in here. I don't want to ruffle the feathers. But one team I did really like a lot is West Virginia, and they squeaked through. Well, I wouldn't say squeaked through on a 3-0. So, and
that's a good team. You got all those Canadian international players there, and, I mean, that's a good team.
And South Carolina, one of the teams that a lot of our fans emailed in, they put up a touchdown against Alabama State. So, this is not a bad weekend. I mean, 7-0. I mean, that's the most lopsided win out of all the tournaments. We also have the local team, Penn State, putting up a 6-0 on Bucknell, and Rutgers goes through it 3-0. So that'll be an interesting matchup if both of them win their team games respectively against Georgetown and Virginia. So, I mean, this is the time of year where with the teams that are left now, there's not a single team out there that you'd say, oh, that's an upset. I mean, some teams that are a little more favored than others, but I think every team that's left now with the 32 teams left are all, I wouldn't say powerhouse teams, but teams that you could legitimately argue could get to the Final Four.
I mean, one team that caught my eye is NC State knocking off Minnesota in PKs, going 0-0 in the PKs. Wow, that's a tough one to swallow there.
Yeah, I've been on the sad end of PKs last year coaching, and it's like the worst feeling in the world.
I've been on the sad end of them playing multiple times.
We won't even bring that up. We'll talk about that later in the show. But, there'll be Kleenexes later, too.
No, but it is interesting to see Minnesota lose a game that early. At Villanova, we played Minnesota this year, and they handed us a nice little lovely loss, which wasn't great.
What's a lovely loss? Did they give you a gift basket afterwards?
It wasn't great, but, I mean, it's they were a good team. So for me to see that them losing to North Carolina State, it was a bit shocking to me. And not seeing them put a goal on the back of the net, I mean, they put 5 against us, so thought that they could, I mean, it's a good team. Yep. It's a little bit shocking to me. I mean, number 4 seed getting knocked out early.
Yep, that's why they played a tournament. That's the interesting part. And we look at a little other local flavor teams in the D2 women's bracket. Westchester ends up beating East Stroudsburg by a score of 2-0. They're going to play, or actually 2-1, sorry. They're going to play Kutztown, so that'll be third round of the D2, November 18th, Westchester women. So
go Rams.
Go Rams, So that's our D2 wrap-up. I do believe that Rowan lost. I don't have it in front of me. Rowan lost to Christopher Newport, last week. That was one of our local D3 teams. So tough loss for Rowan. I coach a couple players at Rowan, but I am from Newport News, Virginia, and that's where Christopher Newport is. But it's a weird thing because I don't know if I've told you guys before. Christopher Newport bought my high school.
No kidding.
Yeah, my high school was bought by a university. So it's kind of weird to see all the halls that I roamed as a high school student. It's now part of a college.
Stop.
No, I did have friends that went 4 years high school and then went 4 years Christopher Newport University.
Okay.
Basically 8 years in the same building and you only got a bachelor's. So it's a tough one. But this is the most exciting time of the year. I mean, you went through these tournaments. You got pretty deep. How deep did your UCL teams get when you played in a tournament?
I made 4 Final Fours.
Wow, made 4 Final Fours.
I did.
So but you guys never got past Final Four, though.
Yeah, we did. Two of my freshman and sophomore year went to the finals and lost in the finals. My freshman year we lost.
I didn't do enough resource on you. I apologize.
Okay,
I didn't bring up all these old sores,
it's
man.
all
Just
right.
pull the Band-Aid off.
My freshman year we lost to Notre Dame in PKs.
Oh.
My sophomore year we took a nice little beat in Portland. We lost 4-0. And my junior year we lost to UNC 1-0. And my senior year, we don't talk about that loss at all because we lost to USC.
Oh, you're local
Rivalry.
rivalries.
All 4 years I played there, and the season.
Yeah.
All 4 years in the Pac-10, which is now the Pac-12, to lose in the semifinals.
You brought it up. We didn't have to talk about it. So, I mean, gosh, moving on. I don't know how to recover from that one, man. So, but, keep tuned to the NCAA tournament, men's side, women's side. I mean, you've got D1, 2, 3, and men and women's side. So, you have 6 brackets. So, we didn't have enough prep time on this show to do that. Maybe next year we'll do a 6-for-6 prediction at every single one. We talk about predicting like that one of the tournaments is like one in like so many million. But I'd like to find out the mathematical odds of predicting all 6.
Oh, stop.
Wow.
I might have to go to 8 years of whatever school your buddy
Call
went
up
to.
Stephen Hawking and ask him the odds on that one because I don't know what it is. But, that'll be exciting. So what we want to dig into next is the good old mailbag. We got some questions. I've got them buried somewhere in here. So going through my notes, let me find that. Here it is, the mailbag. We got some great questions in. I jotted down about 8 of them. Some of them are directed right at Danesha Adams.
So mailbag at worldsportshow.com for everybody listening out there. So fire it up. We check the mailbag often. So please not after 2 o'clock at night because it does ring my phone. And I do hear buzz every time I get an email. So
That's why I prank
put it
email
on-
John.
If I forget to put it on. But it's all good. Yeah, fire away. Radio at worldsportshow.com.
No questions on Red Bull Ron tonight. I guess because they had the break, no MLS going on. This guy's got nothing better to do. I mean, that's the weird part about when you have all these rivals. Same thing, you, Danesha. You have all these rivals at school, but when you put on the USA jersey, you cheer for the USA. You're all allies, and it's just a weird feeling.
Absolutely, it is. I mean,
especially as a college player, you play against these players, then your teammates on the field.
Yeah, I mean, but I think in the soccer world, it's so small. So when that does happen, it's you end up creating friends and teammates for a lifetime, and I think that's a blessing to have. You know, and I think it's great.
So dipping into the old mailbag, Matt writes in from Center City. How concerned are you with Tim Howard out?
You tossing that to me?
I'm tossing it to anybody. You can toss it back to me. I can toss it to myself.
Well, hopefully it'll be just this Costa Rica game, and that'll be it. Hopefully back, but I don't know if we had they came out what the diagnosis was, but not that. So if it's one game, am I concerned? If I'm a Colorado Rapids fan, I'm very concerned. But a national team, I would have to say, I mean, for this one game, we talked about it before. A result is needed, even though it's early. It's not the end of the world, but am I concerned about him? I mean, he is getting old. So is this going to slow him down a little bit? Let's figure out what the injury is, but it is concerning. I mean, did I just say a lot of nothing in about a minute there? I think I did.
Say a lot of nothing. That's the old dodge the question.
I think I spun the wheel, but, what I'm trying to say is I'd like to see what the diagnosis is. So let's get a little bit more, figure out if it's going to be a long-term thing or if it's going to be, tape it up, get back in there in a couple months. So if they get the W, it won't be an issue, but if they lose, it'll be an issue.
It's a right anterior suffered. That's all it says. Diagnosed with an injury to right anterior suffered during USA-Mexico match. So
yeah, that's just a good old lovely ankle sprain.
That's right. They word it so much. Could have said sprain, tweak,
But did he get down after? Did he get back up?
He tried it a few times. And remember, it was a ground ball. He saved a low ground shot around the 6 and kind of just put his hands up because he tried to go on it. So, like you said, the upside is it's one game with Guzman. They can win with Guzman. Long term, we want Timmy Howard to be our guy to go to the World Cup, but I think one game will be out with Guzman. I'm not 100% concerned, but like I said, if I was a Rapids fan writing in, I'd be really concerned.
Because he's done for the season. So that's
we never know of how tricky even is an ankle injury. I mean, as a goalkeeper, it's very important, but if you've got a really good back line and playing in front of you and your guys are playing really tight up top, it depends on how much it's going to be used because you can get cold in goal. And then second you're tested, you realize, I can't move. I haven't been tested for 20 minutes.
So to answer that question, Matt, no.
Yeah, not 0% concerned U.S.
There you go.
If I'm a Colorado Rapids fan, I'm about 95% concerned.
There you go.
If I'm going to put a number on it. So thanks,
good.
Matt from Center City. And Bryce from South Philly writes in, what formation would you use against Costa Rica on Tuesday night?
What would I?
What would you, Coach John? And we'll throw it to Danesha, too, and ask what formation she'd run against Costa Rica.
considering I'm a know-nothing,
I'm a know-nothing.
I'm a low-level youth coach. I mean, to be honest, I want to see them go with same thing as what they played before. Just go repetitive. I want to see the same formation. I want to see some of the same players, getting comfortable in the same spots and the same roles. I don't want to see the switch in and switch out. I think this is money time. Get used to it, and so whatever it was, play it again. So that's what I need.
It's tough though, because I think that with so much change with players, I think it's been hard to find a system that fits us. I mean, look at someone like a Josie Altidore. You look at someone like a Bobby Wood. To me, Bobby Wood should not be wide. But at the same time, when you have a Josie Altidore and a Bobby Wood, it's hard to play. What do you do?
Yeah.
Do you play a 4-3-3? Can Jermaine Jones sit for a full 90 minutes? Or do you need to put someone like a Michael Bradley? So I think it's a tough situation. I think for me, Kyle Beckerman is not someone that can sit in that role. So I think right now they're sticking with Jermaine Jones is kind of who's been sitting there. But again, Jermaine Jones' attacking presence is very important to us. So it's a tough situation. But I think you stick with what you know. But for me, I think I would put Bobby Wood at the 9. I'd switch up that formation with Bobby Wood because I think he's so dangerous.
I'll let Klinsman know later.
I think he's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think that just what he brings. Yeah, Josie's been playing well with Toronto. But I just think Bobby Wood's presence, he's been scoring goals left and right.
I'll skip through a couple of the questions because I noticed the time is running short. That's what happens when you have an hour show. We still got to dig into Danesha Adams' awesome career. And we'll throw one at you that's from the fan Heather from Florida. Danesha, what were some of the top defenders or hardest players you face, like some of the top defenders to beat?
Oh, that's tough. Wow, it's a tough question. I would say in my professional days, I would say probably Christy Rampone. One of the best defenders out there that we have. I would also say, that's tough. Becky Sauerburn's pretty tough to go around. And I think part of Becky's game is she's pretty smart. She's pretty savvy. She reads the game well. So for her, she's a pretty tough defender. And if I give you one more, I would say, that's a tough question. I'm going to play against Amy LaPelbit. I think also is a very tough defender to play against. I've played with her a little bit, but also now playing against her, she's not an easy defender. Yeah. And I think some people think it's just like, you got to be a great tackler, you got to get stuck in. And those aren't
the players, man.
Those aren't the players that are difficult to get around because those are the players that dive in and get in early. It's those players that are smart and read the game and can read what you see, and then you got to beat them to that position and whatnot. So, those are probably 3 of my top tough defenders.
Wow. Some household names there. So we'll ask another question from you. This is Stan from Fishtown. Danesha, who was the toughest coach you had to ever train underneath?
I would say Paul Riley. And I think that is because his expectation for us as players was through the roof. I think that he was very, you had to be a certain type of player to play for him. I think, and when he took over the Philadelphia Independence, when he first was the head coach of that team, he took a bunch of players who weren't doing great on their previous teams when that expansion team came around. And for me in my career at that point, it was one of those things where he was willing to push, and it didn't matter if we were exhausted, if we were tired. People always say, you have to be fresh, you have to be this. But to me, it's a mentality. And I think he brought the best mentality out of that team that we had, and he was able to bring a lot out of us. 2 years to make it to the finals as the expansion team. It was tough. It was definitely tough to play under him. And look at him now. He just won the finals with the
how was that for you? What was the kind of emotions watching that game, seeing one of your coaches just pull off that championship?
I think it was huge, especially with playing with him for 2 years and us not being able to win a championship, and then him going to Portland. And I don't think he was definitely treated the best way he could be treated in that system, in that situation, because I think he's a good coach. But I think in Portland he had a lot of personalities. So it's how do you deal with that? Right now in Western New York, it was kind of the same as the Philly situation. You had a bunch of young players who were willing to buy in, and I think he was, I would say, the toughest coach I played for.
Yeah, because Philly I think that's what I loved about the Philadelphia Independence, and this is a good segue in talking about your professional and college and U.S. career, that the Philly team that he had this year was a blue-collar grit type of team. You guys just worked and worked and worked, and how good you guys were in 2011 during the World Cup. teams left, and you guys just gritted it out. I don't think you lost a single game during that World Cup. You guys just went on a tear during that.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing is he did a very good job of picking his team knowing that World Cup year was going to happen, and I think that was huge. And I think to me, that's great coaching. At the same time, everyone's like, oh no, we want all the national team players. But when they're gone, what are you going to do? You look at a Magic Jack that year. That whole team was made up of national team players.
Yeah. You guys beat them in the first round of playoffs like it was nothing.
Yeah. And we beat them early in the year because of the same thing. Half their team was gone. So it's one of those things where I think you have to, especially in this league, because we don't take a big enough break during those times, I think you have to build your team understanding that these players are going to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when some of the players left, you guys had a good goalkeeper problem on you. Val Henderson comes in and then put up, stats like Barney puts up, and then bang. Paul has probably the hardest job there going to the playoffs of, how good the players that weren't national team players filled in had to play. I mean, what was that decision like going into the locker rooms and building up, knowing that, hey, I've got faith in every single player on this team?
I think it was huge. I think it's why we were successful. I think his influence on us was huge. And I think everyone says, oh no, he's so strong-minded. And I'm like, no, we were well prepared for every single game. It didn't matter if you were from the bottom of the bench or the top of the bench. It didn't matter if you were the Amy Rodriguez's of the world or if you were those developmental players. It didn't matter.
You weren't going to name a player. I was waiting for you to name somebody.
I couldn't think that far. So
you always throw yourself under the bus.
So I went to you figure at that point in time, you have Amy Rodriguez, who's high on the national team, all that, high national team forward. Then you had me, you have Leanne Sanderson, you had quite a few forwards, Christina DiMartino. We had a great team. But I think at the same time, we bought into whatever he wanted in his system. And that's what made us successful. And I think at that level, at the professional level, you got to buy into your coach. If you don't, it makes it difficult.
And after that season, it was a very dark time in women's soccer. I remember finding out via a text. I guess this Manya McCoskey actually texted me and told me about the league just folded, and John and I had just basically signed on a deal with Independence to do their radio. This is before even there was YouTube broadcast of the women's. I mean, this is still, I feel like, the dark ages or the stone ages of women's professional soccer. That when that hit, it was one of the worst days of my life. I mean, how did you find out about the WPS folding?
Same. We got an email. Paul Riley sent us an email. We had heard, hear things here and there. And, there was a lot of rumors for about a couple of weeks that was going to happen. And we just kind of, continued to hope and that wasn't going to be the end of our, our women's professional career. And it was unfortunate. And I think a lot of us ended up going to go play overseas. And luckily for me, after the 2011 season, I played in Norway. So I had already been overseas. So then I had been seen overseas and, I had gotten in contact with some people. And literally, I got a phone call from a team in Sweden saying, hey, we just heard the league folded and it's not going to happen. And that's kind of like at the same time you're hearing that like, oh, that's a bummer. But
you got a job offer.
But now I have an opportunity.
So
I went with it. I played with another player who played in the WPS with Ifeoma Dieki. She played for Chicago Red Stars, so she was going to this team, and so I knew someone going to that team. Kendall Fletcher came to the team with us, and then Brittany Bach was there, came mid-season. So, I mean, it was a great group. We did a good job. We had a good season. The team had just gotten promoted to the top league in the Damallsvenskan, so it was good. I mean, it was a great experience for me. It was a great culture. Actually a culture that I could see myself living in, to be honest. I loved it.
I mean, you got almost 20-some hours of daylight. I've seen many of pictures you posted on the internet.
That was actually more Norway, but in Sweden it was just it was still a beautiful country. Yeah. I was in a small town. There was 7,000 in my town that I lived in.
Wow, you're like a local celebrity almost.
One bank, one grocery store.
So where'd you bank?
Can I throw you a total off-the-wall question? I have a lot of Swedish friends, and they tell me this legendary myth about this food that might be, they say it's the worst smelling and tasting food in the world. It's like a can of rotten fish.
Oh, yeah. The sardines, it comes in a can. They love it.
Have you ever smelled it?
It's awful.
Oh. You didn't go there.
No. And the crazy part is we'd go on the bus to road trips and they would bring it. They would have it. And I'm like, guys, you can't bring this on the bus.
Dude, that's a violation, man.
But I mean, it was a good experience. I loved it. I mean, I still actually to this day communicate with a lot of people from the town.
That's awesome, man.
I tried to go out maybe once or twice a week to the local school, and I would go to the school, like PE, I guess it was kind of called then. It wasn't called PE in Sweden, but I went there and would train with the kids and kick around with the kids.
That's so cool.
So now there's 3 or 4 kids that I keep in touch with, text their parents, and, they're always checking in. So for me, it was just good to give back to the community, and I enjoyed it.
So you've had stints in Sweden, you have stints in Norway, and we were talking earlier in the show prep that it was confirmed because Wikipedia is kind of an interesting thing that you did actually play in Turkey. And how did that all go about playing in
I
Turkey?
did. I was playing for Sky Blue, and I got an email from a person. I had no idea who he was. Come to find out, he actually was the club coach of UCLA soccer, the club, when I was playing at UCLA.
Okay.
So he reached out to Val Henderson and said, "Hey Val, we're looking for a forward for this team. Do you know anyone?" So Val shot me a text message and said, "Hey, would you be interested in playing in Turkey?" And I was like, "Turkey? What?" And I was like, "You know what? Why not?"
Yeah.
So I got in contact with the guy, and literally it was within 2 weeks I was there. Wow. I had to go to California to get the proper paperwork and stuff, go to the Turkish embassy and do all that. I mean, it took me 2 weeks almost to get legal when I was in Turkey. I had to go down to the embassy every single day.
These are stories that people don't hear of. All these different. It's not just signing a contract, hopping on a plane,
oh no,
man.
Oh no, it's definitely, it's making sure that you're actually legal to walk around the country. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and it's just. It was an awesome experience. It was different. Obviously, being in a complete Muslim country, it was different for me. It was a whole nother atmosphere.
Wow.
But I enjoyed it. The girls were awesome. Only one really spoke English, so for the most part, I was kind of touch and go with a lot of the players, and didn't really know many of them. So didn't know the language. A lot of the girls would work during the morning, and then we'd train in the evening.
Okay.
I actually ran into a couple WNBA players while I was there who play, because a lot of the WNBA players play overseas in their off season. So I ran into quite a few of them and ended up becoming pretty good friends with a couple of them, and just finding my spare time going to hang out with other Americans and doing different things. So it was awesome. I mean, building connections, and again, actually made a pretty good friend there in Turkey who I then helped play with me in Norway last year. So that was awesome, and it was fun for her.
6 degree of separation. You've talked about how small soccer community is, and it's still small even on an international level.
It is.
And you also played in Cyprus.
I did play in Cyprus.
Wow, that must have been just gorgeous setup.
It was awesome. It was being able to play in a Champions League experience. I played with another couple NWSL players that are currently still playing, and it was awesome. I loved it. I mean, it was just. You can't ask for anything better. We lived on a resort. We literally beachfront every single day. We could walk to the beach. We had a pool also. And when, living with 4 Americans, we were able to cook and hang out and do whatever we wanted. Again, there we met some American basketball players on the guy side who played for our men's team. So that was awesome. We played for the Apollon Ladies, which is what it's called, but there was an Apollon. It was the name of the city. Yeah. And they had a men's team, basketball team, so we were able to connect with those Americans. It was just awesome. I think and people don't realize, but when you go overseas, there's so many other people that, A, speak your language or are just like you.
Yeah.
But we're a little bit, us as Americans, we're kind of narrow-minded. We're a little bit scared, like, I don't want to step out of my bubble, my comfort zone. But for me, I mean, I've traveled to so many countries now playing soccer, that there's places I want to take my kids. I've been to Norway twice now. I've loved it, made some great friends. One of my friends from Norway came to visit me in America this summer. So, now I plan to go back. And for me, I think it's all about building relationships and building, just growing as a human every single day, and putting myself in places to learn different cultures, or else I would never know.
Yeah, now this year, you're coaching Villanova. I mean, I guess we're growing up now.
We are. We had to hang the boots up a little bit and get a big girl job at the Villanova. And I mean, it was a different experience for me. I've always coached a little bit on the side, but I think now putting myself in an environment where these girls every single day are doing what I used to do for a living, I think it's awesome. And to be able to share my experiences with them, and to be able to every single day help them try and improve and get better and get them to their end goal that I had once too. So for me, it's been great. It's a great season. Obviously, it didn't go as planned, in the win chart column, but I still think we're young. We have a young team. We had 11 freshmen, starting 5 to 7 a game.
Yeah, we were in a situation out at Philly. We had 14 freshmen. So it's you look at the next season, that those players, not just the play experience, I think experience in the culture, experience in the bus rides, experience in the 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days. So
absolutely. But
just a reminder, everybody out there, you're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia. This is World Sports Show. I'm Charlie Flo with Danesha Adams and John DeCriscio. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. It's been an amazing show. I feel like we just the tip of the iceberg, that there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about your international travels and coaching this year at Villanova. So want to thank your program for, reaching out and letting us have you on the show. And thank you for doing what you do for women's soccer, and keep doing what you're doing, Danesha.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's World Sports Show. We're out.